Jim, thanks for coming on. Really appreciate you taking the time to have a conversation with me. Would you mind telling us a little bit about yourself before we get started?
Okay, so I'm Jim Sterba. I teach philosophy, social and political philosophy, moral and political philosophy at the University of Notre Dame. Um, Probably the most relevant thing to say about myself in this context is how I became a philosopher of religion. Most of my career I've been a moral and political philosopher, working on various topics, general theory, but then topics like affirmative action, environmental justice, world hunger. But in 2013, I just finished my last book in moral and political philosophy, published with Oxford, From Rationality to Equality. And I was, what am I going to do? What do you do next? I just couldn't figure out what to do next. But what happened at that point was my office at Notre Dame is right next to the Philosophy of Religion Center. And I've been watching what was going on in philosophy of religion at Notre Dame, particularly about the problem of evil. I was kind of interested in that, but I wasn't doing any work on it. But then it came to me at this time, 2013, that maybe I could bring moral and political philosophy to bear on the problem of evil. Why did I think that was relevant? Well, because when I watched people work on the problem of evil at Notre Dame, various conferences, they were almost all metaphysicians and logicians, and almost no moral political philosophers. And I thought, well, maybe there's something missing here. And so I took the idea to the Templeton Foundation. And the idea was to bring elements of moral and political philosophy to bear on the problem of evil. And John Templeton's view of the Templeton Foundation was, he thought religion was moribund and science was progressive. So I pitched my project as I was going to bring the science of ethics to bear on the problem of evil. And they liked the idea. They gave me money to run a couple conferences and to take the year off to work on the problem myself. Well, I get more deeply into it. And then after the conferences and working continuously on it, in 2019, I came up with my book, Is Good God Logically Possible? And the conclusion of that book was that the traditional God of theism, that all good, all powerful God, was logically incompatible with all the evil, and particularly the horrendous evil in the world. So now, that's a logical argument against the existence of God. And I know must know the history of this problem. It goes back to a debate in recent history between John Mackey and Alvin Plantinga. And Mackey was the atheist, and he was coming up with a logical argument against the existence of God. And the logical argument starts off with what you state assumption, that it's an all good, all powerful God. And then you have assumption, well, you say there's evil in the world. And I'm focusing more on horrendous evil, but Mackey was just, there's evil. That's an empirical premise, but if you deny that, you don't have the problem of evil. So that's a starter. Those are things that theists and atheists can just go along with. But then the next part, and this is the crucial part, is if you're going to have a logical argument, you've got to come up with some necessary premises that connect up the all good, all powerful God with the evil in the world. And Mackey had made an attempt at that, and he had a couple premises. One was a good thing always eliminates evil as far as it can. And then the other was there are no limits to what an omnipotent thing can do. And he thought you plug those into this, the thesis about God and thesis about evil, and you could have a logical argument against the existence of God. Well, my former colleague, now retired, Alvin Plantinga, looked at that, and he thought those premises, those supposedly necessary premises, are not necessary at all. They're not even true. And so he showed that the first thing, the good thing always eliminates evil as far as it can. Well, we don't do that, even when we're good. So if it doesn't hold for us, how's it going to hold for God? And there are limits to what an omnipotent thing can do. No limits. Well, if you want to make free creatures, you can't interfere with their freedom. If you got to say, I'm not going to interfere with their freedom, or if you interfere with freedom, you no longer have free creatures. So that was devastating, and even ultimately Mackey realized he didn't have an argument. And that was a turning point. That was back in the early 70s, at least when it finally took hold. And from what happened then was atheist philosophers just gave up on the logical problem with logical argument against the existence of God. They turned to the evidential terms. So they went for evidential arguments and not logical arguments. And even this idea that Plantinga defeated Mackey's argument, logical argument, is actually one of the most widely held views in philosophy, both by atheists and by theists. And in fact, some of the atheists that were leading the charge for the evidential say, well, Plantinga's got it right. There's no logical argument, so let's go forward. So I wasn't quite so sure about this. And I didn't really have an argument initially. So the whole project was to investigate whether you could construct a logical argument. And by the time I had the book, I thought I had one. And now I think you claim that you have a logical argument against the existence of God too, right?
Yep.
And the basic moral premise, we had talked about Mackey's premises there. The basic premises were yours is you should not violate consent. All violations of consent are morally wrong.
Well, I think that would definitely be a part of it. I think my argument would go something like, if there's a maximally good being who's all powerful, they would do the least bad action possible. If they do an action that has more evil or more bad than what is required, then it wouldn't be a perfectly good being. There are actions that are clearly more bad than required, therefore there is no perfectly good being, something along those lines.
Well, what happens with this principle about violation of consent? I kind of heard you using this before.
That would be like what I assess as a bad action. So if you violate consent more than is required, that would be a more bad action than is required.
Oh, so now you can violate consent. It's not an absolute principle for you.
Well, if it was required, so if it was required that you have to violate consent, but to, let's say, a degree X, but you do it to X plus 1, then you'd be all evil. Now, I think that no violations of consent would be required. So I think what if a logically possible, all-powerful being existed who was perfectly good, he would create a world that had no involuntary impositions of will. But the only thing that's required for my logical problem of evil is that God violated consent 1 degree more than was required. So even if it's required that he does violate consent to some degree.
How do we know he violated consent 1 degree more than required?
We need one logically possible example where he could have violated consent less, but didn't.
But then the issue there is, could there be some counterbalancing good that justifies the violation of consent?
Right. So I'd say
there's no counterbalancing good.
Right. So I'd say that any possible good can be achieved without the violation of whatever example I'm using.
Well, usually what theists do here is to show that there are goods that are logically connected to the permission of evils. So you can't get those goods without the permission of evils. And
but
God couldn't do it either.
I'd ask them what it is, because I show that here's a logically possible world where you can get that good without this particular example of violation of consent. So any example you give, I can give a logically possible world where you can get that positive good without a particular violation of consent.
Okay, so what about the possible the good of forgiving your assailant?
You still have that. So my most common example is I say that if we had a world where everyone had the option to be in whatever world they wanted to be in, for example, so you could choose to live in exactly this world exactly as it is. The only difference is that everyone has an option to like check in to voluntarily be here. Well, now any possible good that's in this world is possible in the world I just described, because this world is one of the options. And so any possible good that's possible in this world is also possible in a world where everyone can choose whether or not they want to be in this world. And so no matter what good is here in this world is necessarily possible in that world.
Well, a good of forgiving an assailant is only possible if there is an assailant. Right. And so the question is, why could that good not be justified? Unless I'm going to say something less justified. That's the reason why God permitted the assault, to get this good.
Okay, so my counterexample works like this. We have exactly our world exactly as it is right now. All of
Yeah,
rape, murder, torture, everything's
yeah,
this. The
yeah.
only difference is that before entering this world, you have an option. You can say, I consent to being a part of this world, or I'd rather go to my own world without that stuff. And so now in this world I've described, where we've added this conditional of you can go into the world as God designed it, or you could opt out in this universe, all possible goods that are in the world as we know it are necessarily possible in that world too, because our world is one of the options in that world.
Well, this is a very complicated logical argument. That I mean, the idea now we sort of pre-exist and we imagine pre-exist and we then choose to enter worlds. First, we could. What about making bad choices for ourselves and for others? I mean, we could choose to enter a world that really turns out to be really shitty.
We
And
could,
now what?
we could. What
Well,
would that
that
wouldn't?
would seem to me that necessarily is not a justification for. Well, now you can't complain about it, fellow. You chose to get into this world.
Right.
Though I don't think that quite works
Well,
because
that's not a logical contradiction. So all I need to show is that it's the point of this argument is just to give one possible example where all possible goods in this world can be achieved in a different world. That's all I need to show. There's one change he could make that could make a less involuntary imposition of will, which is in this case giving you consent to being in this world or consent to going to a different world. So that's one additional way he did not violate your consent. And you can do this and still have all of the goods in this world. So because if this world is one of the options, then necessarily all of the goods in this world are possible. They have to be. It's just logically entailed that this world is one
let
of the
me see if
options.
let me see if I get this. So if we got the good of forgiving a assailant, and we're talking about whether that good, whether God could permit that good, and then maybe you're going to say, well, no, not just by itself, but if you chose to enter this world where you would be, you knew you would be assaulted, and then have this choice of forgiving the assailant, then it's okay, but not otherwise. Is that the idea? I mean, what is
Uh,
it? Because I'm
well, the,
trying to what I'm trying to do is, the theist is always going to look onto those. There's these goods that are logically connected to evils, and now I'm wondering, well, if you say, well, now there are going to be any goods that are logically connected to evils in my world, your world, Tom. Well, then I don't know what to do there because how do we get into the Tom's world here when we're in this world and we're talking about could God permit this assault to provide this good of forgiveness?
I'm not sure what your argument there. So the only point of this analogy is to show that any logically possible good that is in this world is possible in a different world where there's one additional change, which is you have an option to be here. That's it. So the
Okay,
only point,
that's what I had it right. So here's the good in this world, and it's to forgive an assailant.
right,
And now we imagine a pre-existent where you chose to enter into that world, and therefore and experience the good of being able to freely consent, forgive an assailant.
right.
And now you're saying if you did that, it, it's okay. It's God's okay if he gave you consent in a
Yes.
pre-existing world to enter this world and to now. I'm not sure that would be right. I mean, it would all depend on what. Did you know what you were getting into? Did you know what
Right.
this really meant? I mean,
Right. So
yeah.
God would have to give you a complete understanding of what you're consenting to if you're not
Oh my
sure. But
gosh.
that's a separate argument. The point here is that here is one example of something where he did not violate consent. So if he forces you to be in this world without your consent, he has violated your consent. You did not give consent to this.
We don't
If
know whether he did. I mean, that the idea that we were in a pre-existing world and whether we chose
it's not,
because we forgot it by now when we got here and got in this world, we don't know that.
that's not it doesn't matter if we know it or not. This is just hypothetical. So
Well,
whether or
yeah,
not it
but
actually
it
occurred
could
is
be met. It could have been met. And if you,
right.
it could
That's
have been
fine.
that we freely chose to enter this world before,
Right.
and then we get into it. Now, I assume we don't remember we freely chose. This is kind of you can't remember that you were in a pre-existing world and freely chose to enter this world. Is that what you're not imagining that?
No, I'm just it would be contradictory to the Bible. So if the Bible is true, then we didn't choose to be here. And so if that is the case, then the
Oh,
God
we're
of
going to use the Bible.
Christianity would be
Wait a
false.
minute. We're going to use the Bible as part of a logical argument here? I mean,
Well, the argument here is against the Christian. Is a logical argument against the Christian God, not all
yeah.
possible gods. So if like there's many different
Well,
possible
then your whole
gods.
hypothesis goes out the door, because if you're trying to argue against the Christians, you can't talk about a pre-existence where you had choices about whether you got here, whether you accepted the evils in this world or not. They
Well,
don't. If they don't believe that, you
Right.
don't have an argument against them.
Well, so the argument is the Christian God logically possible to be all good? It's a logical argument
Yeah.
against the Christian
Okay.
God.
Well, in this Christian God, there is
So
no pre-existence where you choose to come into this world.
it's logically possible. So that's all I
Oh
need to show.
no,
is
so
that.
there is. But I thought you said it was against the Bible here, and so against Christianity. Well, so
What?
it's logically possible, but not in Christianity.
I don't understand what you're saying here.
Well,
So
you
if
said,
God, it's logically possible God didn't drown babies in the global flood. If it's logically possible he didn't, he could have not done that, then the fact that he did that is an unnecessary evil, therefore he's immoral. So if I can give one example of anything he could have done differently that is less immoral or that's less bad.
well, now you're shifting off to a natural evil, which is a little
No,
harder.
no. It doesn't matter. The particular example is irrelevant here. My
Well, you
particular
gave
example,
drowning the baby, so I'm trying in the flood. So I'm trying to
right.
do what kind of example that is. That's
It's
a
the
natural
same
evil.
example I'm using with the consent of the universe. So just like God could have chosen not to drown babies, he also has the power to give you intelligence as a soul thingy before you go to the world and give you an option to be here. So both of those are options he had. He could have not drowned babies. He could have given you the option to join this world. Those are two things he could have done differently.
He could have. On Christianity view, he has that early pre-existent choice wasn't there, and so
Right.
and then you have to, and it seems like it makes it harder for the Christian, because they don't have the possibility that you freely chose to enter this world with evils, and therefore God is not really a bad person for doing what he did in this world, because you knew what was going to happen and you just entered anyway.
Right. That would be God doing something that is less evil, an option he had, which he didn't do, which would prove he's immoral.
Wait, if it's true that he gave us all this pre-existing consent, everybody had it. That means everybody in this world
Right.
is here and accepted all the evils that are coming in the world in their pre-existence.
Right. And that would not be the Christian God.
Like
So that would be the not Christian God. So if there's a different kind of a God, which is not the Christian God, and the Bible is false and Christianity is false, and there's a different kind of a God who did that, that God would not be immoral. Sure. But if the Christian God and the Bible is true, and the Christian God did what the Christian God said in the Bible, which was not give us consent, then this logical argument proves the Christian God is evil. So this argument is only applied to the Christian God.
That there is a problem, more of a problem. That's why I thought that this pre-existing consent was really helping the theist out here. But as you're pointing out, it won't help the Christian theist. It may help other kinds of theists. Okay,
Yes.
well, now the Christian theist was always operating with there's no pre-existent consent, but they were saying though that these evils, they're there. I mean, I don't know if you want it. It's that some of them are, some of them aren't. That they're logically connected to. The goods are logically connected to them. That was my example of forgiving an assailant. That good forgiving an assailant is logically connected to there being an assailant, and so now the question is, could that good justify God's permission of the assault? That's now the Christian might come in and say, yes, that could. I can justify the assault because of this good that you wouldn't have without the assault of forgiving the assailant. Now, I'm not buying all this, but the point is, it looks like the theist has a case that there's a lot of evils in the world that are logically connected to goods. And there's a question: do those goods justify the evils? Now, you point out that it looks worse if you don't have a pre-existent consent to the world, and I grant you that. But it still doesn't. It's not just pointing out that there's what? I mean, what do you got to do here? See, I think what you have to do.
Yeah. I think what you're missing is the point of this analogy is to show there is a logically possible world where you still have the good of forgiving an assailant, without God forcing you to be here. So without God doing this unnecessary evil, you still have the good. The good
So
is still there. So in this universe where God does not force you to be in a world where there's all this bad stuff, you still have the option to be here. So the good is still in this universe, but there's one less bad, which is God didn't force you to be here.
Yeah, well, but one might say that, creatures that had a pre-existent choice are different from us. They're just not the same. We're not people who could have had a pre-existent choice. So we might want to say, well, there's multiple universes here. There's the universe where creatures have pre-existent choice, and then there's the universe that we come kind of out of the slime of the earth, and that's how we get here. We don't have any pre-existent choice. So you have to ask a question about the kind of creatures we are. And if we're not creatures which could have the possibility of a pre-existent choice, because we'd have to be totally different kinds of creatures, then I don't know, then we need another argument. That's all.
I don't understand. That doesn't seem to make any sense at all. Like, I don't know what you mean by different kinds of creatures. Like, Christians think we're souls. So the fact that our soul exists before we exist on earth is like just an entailment of Christianity. I'm not sure what the problem here is.
Christians think we have souls, or no. I mean, the early Christians thought we didn't have souls. The early Jews thought we didn't have souls. It was all about the body. That was why you had a resurrection with the body.
As far as I know, I don't know any Christians who think God isn't powerful enough to like generate your consciousness and let it do stuff. That seems like a very strange, arbitrary limit you're placing on God there. Okay.
Whether creatures have souls or not? What? I mean, he couldn't create creatures without souls? What?
That God couldn't allow me to exist prior to this universe and choose to go to a different universe. Like there's no logical contradiction there.
Well, on the Jew era, the time around the time of Jesus, the view was that you were a body.
Okay.
And there was no soul. There was nothing that was going to survive nothing to talk of that would survive the body. That's why if things were going to be good for human beings, there had to be this resurrection of the body. That was so crucial. Resurrection was so crucial. Now, if you're imagining that we were pre-existent material beings, and then we came into the world with the same pre-existing beings, with our same material bodies, I don't know how you're going to run pre-existent, if you believe that what we are is material bodies, I don't know how you run a pre-existence on that.
God created your material body.
What?
God created your material body in a little material
so
box.
He had one body up in pre-existence, and then
same body.
And then all of a sudden, the same body now, or a different body now? The same.
God's all powerful. He can teleport you pretty easily. I'm not seeing the problem there.
Well, teleporting, in question whether teleporting preserves sameness or not is not clear.
I think God's all powerful enough to be able to teleport you.
I don't want to get too bring reality with fiction, but I mean,
it seems like you're arguing God is not powerful enough to create a material body that isn't on Earth and teleport it. Like he just can't do that. He's not powerful enough.
I mean, if this is the reason why he can't permit this evil now, because we didn't in a pre-existent world, but now. If you didn't think there was a pre-existent world, there had to be the possibility of a pre-existent world where you could have consented to this shows, and there was no pre-existent world, and you didn't consent to this, means that, well, what it means to me is that there's a more difficult justification question now. The question is, look at it this way. You say if there was you could have pre-existed possibly and consented to this, and if you didn't do that, then this is not justified. But it could be there is no pre-existent world. You didn't consent to this, but there's another justification for it still. I mean, all you need is a greater good to justify the evil. That's all you need. You don't have to have the good has to be, the evil has to be chosen in a pre-existent world. You just have to have a greater good, and you have to show there's no greater good. No, here, let me just say a little bit about my approach. So one of the problems here is, again, talking about these goods that God could be appealing to, or theists can be appealing to, that could justify the evil in the world. And on my approach, it was really important to classify all the possible goods that God could provide to us. And so I have a fourfold classification of all goods. How does it do? Well, it starts off with a distinction between goods you could have a right to and goods you can't have a right to. And then they each divide up into goods that either goods that are logically connected to a horrendous evil, or goods that are not logically connected to horrendous evil. That gives us four kinds of goods that God could provide to us. Now that's crucial because the skeptical theist has always said there's some good out there, and we were playing around with possible goods that you're not taking into account that could justify this. And I use that argument at you. So the idea is, if you could now talk about all the goods that God could provide to us, and then you could somehow go into each type and show how God is violating now what? A moral requirement. Now, what's the moral requirement? See, I mean, Mackey's things, those were not, one was metaphysical and one was moral, but they weren't necessary moral requirements. So you needed something else. And what kept, I think, the atheists from fixing up Mackey's argument is that they were primarily metaphysicians and logicians, and so were the theists. And they couldn't see any way that you could come up with a moral, you had to have a necessary moral principle here that would get God in trouble, because if he permitted the evil in this category, one of the four categories, each four categories, that he would be in violation of a necessary moral principle. That was the goal of Mackey. God would be in violation of these necessary principles. They weren't necessary principles, so the argument fell apart. So then you have to provide some necessary principles here. And that's why I thought your impossibility of consent thing was your necessary principle. Now I'm not so clear. You kind of doing these logically possible examples, but to the theists, they just said, well, we got our own logical possible examples, and we're going to counter that somehow. And so I thought it would be really important to talk about all the goods that God could provide to us, and now be very clear about what the necessary moral principle is. And maybe in the beginning we're saying something like this.
Well, so that's sort of right. So what I do is the first part is correct, where I say I start with all of the goods God could provide. No, I don't need to know any of them. I don't have to give a list of any of the goods. I don't have to know any what they are, because I know where they are. They're here in this world. This world must have those goods by whatever definition that these use.
No. You mean Earth?
Yes.
No. It could be on some galaxy out there with creatures like us.
No, the world God created, like the world God did create, because they think God created the world, and whatever way God created the world has to entail the goods, right?
But he created these creatures out in a distant galaxy too.
So in our reality,
goods for those creatures too.
That's fine. So I'm saying the entire universe. God created the universe. And the goods must be a result of this universe. Like whatever the way he created it must entail these goods, right?
Well, entail these goods. Wait a minute. Every good that God could bring about doesn't have to be realized. I mean, think about this way. Think of this other Christian views on this. So, in some sense, God creates us with hopes for us that we're going to, achieve certain goods in our life, and we turn out to be a mess. We're really evil people, and so those goods don't come about by us. I mean, it was good for us. It was a possible good for us. It doesn't materialize.
But if it wasn't possible in this world, then that wouldn't make any sense. You couldn't say the good wasn't possible.
And after we reject,
so you can never ever say there is a good that is not possible in this world, right?
Well, there were choices in the past where goods could have been realized, and once they weren't realized, that those goods can't be realized again.
No. So the argument here is that, in order for a good to be a justification for a bad thing, Um,
Yeah,
drowning babies. God drowned babies because of some greater good. The greater good has to be a result of
it has
whatever
to.
is
Yes,
going
there
on
has to
in
be.
this
I grant
universe.
you that. I grant you that there has to be some greater good. And the
Right.
question uh, is it now? Again, you're going back to drowning babies. So that's a natural evil. Natural evil
That
is a
that
little
part
harder.
that part's
Well,
irrelevant. That part's
look. The reason why uh, I said natural evil is harder is that for the theist, the Christian theist, whatever, the idea of free choice here, which and the possibility of moral evil is it creates a kind of good that this is a way of their way of trying to justify the evil in the world because it is required for free choice. Now, when you're talking about natural evils, there's no free choice about that. If they really go back to God directly. There's no creatures bringing them about, and at least free will creatures. So they make it's a harder case for the theist.
I don't care if it's natural evils or choice evils, makes zero difference to my argument. So my argument is
Oh,
simply
yeah,
that whatever the goods are, I don't know what they are, but
yeah,
whatever the goods are, the way the world is now in our world is conducive to whatever goods God wants to have.
right.
Whatever the goods are, the way the world is now, our world,
Yeah,
our
yeah,
universe,
yeah,
whatever
yeah.
entails in our universe is conducive to all the good thingies, all the
Right,
goods that you
right,
could ever
okay, right,
possibly justify.
yeah. But part of the world that the theist has got here is a world with an afterlife, with
Sure.
goods in those afterlife, and maybe friendship with God, which is this
Yes.
great, fantastic good. And
Sure.
maybe this is the good that compensates. I'm not buying all this, but I'm just but for the evils we see in this world, but we don't see what the good of the afterlife. So
And
how do
you can
we
get
know
those
that
goods in this
outweighs
world,
this?
right? So
What?
so those goods, you can get them by being in this world, right?
Well, on the Christian view, you're going to only get those goods by behaving a certain way in this world, right?
Right. So all goods are possible to gain by being in this world.
Well, they may be, well, yes, but you gain them
That's
in
the whole
the
argument.
afterworld.
So
What?
that's all. That's the only argument here. All goods are possible by being in this world. So whatever the
I don't
goods
know.
are,
I mean, I got a little clear. Possible. I mean, if you're talking about natural evil, the goods of natural goods, that's one way to think about possibility. If you're talking about moral goods, in some sense, they're possible if people choose rightly. In other sense, they might not be possible. Well, they won't be possible if people choose wrongly. So, I mean, there's a sense in which before choice, these goods are possible, but I'm not sure where that leads us, gets us. And the what I just was making is there's these goods in the afterlife that this wonderful experience of friendship with God that the theist is going to say, well, that justifies this permission of evil in this world. So I don't. I'll have an argument why this won't work, but that the goods in the afterlife, which we don't even have a glimpse of, that how could we say they don't outweigh the evils in this life?
I don't care. Like all I'm saying is in order to get that good, whatever it is, I don't you can name any good you want. I don't care. Name
Yeah,
any good you
yeah,
want.
yeah.
To get that good, you go through this world to get that good,
Right,
potentially.
right. So what? Yeah, you
So
have
that
to.
means that all possible goods, whether I know them or not, entail this world right here, right?
Yeah,
So if
but
I
it
have
could
this
be
exact
this
world,
world right here can involve inhabited planets all
I don't
over.
care. I don't care anything
Okay,
about what
okay,
it entails. I care
okay.
nothing about it.
Yes, you have to. Creatures have to come through this world. Right? I
Yes,
grant you
great.
that.
That's it. That's the only argument. So all of the goods that could ever be posited are
Right for
possible.
creatures. For creatures.
That's fine. That's fine. Whatever goods you want. Must come through this world. So if I have this
Right,
world,
right. Okay. Now where do we go from this?
wait. So if I have this world, then I have all of those goods too, because they're all a part of this world, or they follow from this world, or they're
Well,
possible from this world.
they don't that they could be realized. They have to be realized through being in this world. Doesn't mean that you have them, because it could be you can only realize them by
that's all I mean is they can be realized. That's what I mean by have.
possibly, but at certain junctures of time they won't be realized. Some won't
That's
be
fine.
realized.
I don't care about that at all. I
Oh,
don't care about that.
You don't care about that.
So
Okay.
all I care about is in this world, you
Yeah.
need this world to get the goods, whatever they
Yeah,
are. I
well,
don't care what they are. So if I
right,
have
right.
this world in any alternative possibility, then I have all the goods too, because they're all a result of this world.
Yeah.
So if I have a world, let's say world B, where I have exactly everything we have here as God designed it, and I say, you can choose to be a part of that and get all the goods, or you can just opt out and go to a universe of puppies and unicorns and stuff. Well, guess what? You still have all the goods because you have the universe. It's still there. So all of the goods, no matter what they are, all of them ever, no matter what, still there because the world is still there.
So now we have this one, this is a really complicated logical argument. So we have the world that happened with all the creatures coming into the world. And now we're saying, oh, well, this is argument. Well, there's a better world. There's this better world that God could have made, and he didn't make it. So there's a big problem. That's the old God. The question is, there a best possible world? And then you say, well, but you can run that. I'm not sure what to do with this best possible argument. Okay, take whatever world you have, and then there's always a better world. And any world you have, and you're always a better world. So there's no. Are you assuming there's this best possible world, and if God didn't make that one, then he's in deep trouble?
No, my whole argument is here is I'm trying to isolate the goods because the Christian wants to say there is some good that can justify the evil.
Yeah.
Now, all I need to do is show I can get that good. And
But
so
you
how do I
can't
get that
with-
good? Wait.
You can't get
In order
goods
to
that are logically connected to the permission to the evils in the world.
it's irrelevant.
In a world
Wait,
without
wait,
evil.
wait. So again, there's an entailment in Christianity that whatever the good is, it has to be tied to this world in some way. The potential of this world, it's a result of something God does in this world. I don't care. It has to be a result of this world, which means if I have this world, I have the good. All possible goods, all logically possible goods God could ever offer, no matter what. If I have this world, I have those. Those are in the bag. Whatever goods any Christian says, here is a
But now
possible
you
good.
said, but then there's this world B that it isn't.
If I have now, if I take an exact copy of this universe, make it universe B, I still have the goods, right? If I have all the goods in universe A and I make an exact copy with no differences, I still have all the goods, right?
Yeah.
Now let's say I add a pineapple to a corner of the universe. Do I still have all the goods?
See, this is the issue. The whole issue back to is there a best possible world?
This isn't about best. This isn't about best. This is only about goods.
Well, better world. This
isn't about better. Not about better. Not about better at all. So this is all I'm saying. No, not better at all. I'm not making a pineapple doesn't make the universe better. So I'm saying,
all right. So
universe A with God.
Well, yes, the pineapple does make the world better. About one part, yes. There's something really beautiful about a pineapple. Really.
Not the
I mean, living nature. You know how difficult it is to make a pineapple. I mean, think about the natural processes that go into making pineapples. I mean, it's a if I just took a pineapple and squashed it, that would be bad.
The question is does the existence of an extra universe with a pineapple and nothing but a pineapple diminish the goods? So it's not about whether the pineapple is good. That doesn't make a difference. You can say it's a pile of poo. I don't care. So the point here is that there's two possible worlds. One is with exactly this universe as it is, and it has all the goods. It has to, by definition. And then if I copy this universe, make it in universe B, this universe also must have all the goods because they're still in the universe. We still have the exact copy of the universe. Now let's say I make a new dimension, new universe. Now we have our universe exactly as it is, plus an additional thing in this new world B, and this additional thing has no interactions with the world as it is. So the world as it is still has all the goods, but there's this extra dimension with a pineapple and nothing but a pineapple.
Yeah.
Does it still have all of the goods?
We have in a pineapple too.
Yes. So everything we have in a pineapple too. Yeah. Does this universe with everything we have with a pineapple still have all of the goods of world A?
Well, I thought you were going to say, isn't it better than World A because
Nope.
it's now got a pineapple in it?
No, I don't care if it's better. All I care about is, does it still have all the
Well, you
goods?
just
That's all
said you
it's.
duplicated them. I know. If you think
Yes.
duplication produces identity, that I'm not quite sure about that. I mean, if I duplicate you, are there now two yous? There are two yous? If I duplicate you, there's and then,
Yes.
another transporter, and you're out there now. Are there two Toms? Are there just one Tom?
Well, if you genuinely duplicate every property, yes, but
But
I'm not
it's unclear.
sure.
Every property you could have similarity of properties, and they're not. It's not you.
Then that wouldn't be a duplication, but I don't see how that relates to my question. So my question is
I'm
we
not
have
sure
it.
what.
So I'm starting to trying to like tie this back into my argument here. So my argument here starts with, in our universe, God created it exactly as it is. We have all the goods. So if you made an exact duplicate of this entire universe, it would also have all the goods, wouldn't it? Or would it not?
Well, wait, the duplicate. Are you in that universe?
Yes, it's an exact duplicate.
You're in that universe, and you're in this universe.
Yes, it's an exact
Two
duplicate.
yous and two different universes.
Yes, it's an exact duplicate. They are exact duplicates. There's literally no difference between them. They are exact duplicates.
Yeah, I think it's not clear that there could be two yous that are. What's the term of being?
It's not the point.
Identical with you.
Yes, the law of identity. I understand the law of identity. That's not the point.
It's not an identity issue. It's a question about what counts as being physically you.
This doesn't matter to the argument. The point isn't that they actually exist. The point is not to say that these both actually exist simultaneously. That's not the point. I don't care if they actually exist. The point is that
possible to exist. It has to be. They're possible. There has to be a possibility.
It doesn't have to be possible they exist. That's not part of the argument.
Can't do. If it's impossible, then pull things out the window.
No. The point of the argument is to say this exact universe, in whatever construction it is, has all the goods, which means no matter where you place this universe, it's still going to have all the goods. It's a part of this universe. So if you hypothetically imagine that there are two universes, these don't exist, they don't need to exist. This is a thought experiment. They don't need to exist, where you have all of the exact same stuff we have in this universe, and it's all of the exact same stuff and it's in that universe, then it must have all of the same properties because it's the exact same. If it's the law of identity or the transitive property, if A equals B and B equals C, C equals A. So if A is our universe,
there's two existing universes. They're both one universe exists one place and the other universe exists another place.
They're hypothetical. It doesn't matter if they exist. They're hypothetical. I'm just talking about the transitive property. Like if I say if there's a me in this universe and a me in that universe and they're exactly identical, then A equals B, law of transitive property. That's all. Is the transitive property true?
Where are you going to go with this? So suppose there is this a completely identical universe, and now you're going to say, and it's got some good in it that we don't have. Is that what you're going to say?
No, it's not at all what I'm going to say.
Well, what are you going to do?
All of the properties of this universe are also properties of that universe because they're identical, right?
Yeah. Okay.
So all of the goods that result from the properties of this universe must also result from the properties of that universe.
Now what happens next?
That means that wherever I place this universe, I get all the goods. Because property A, our universe,
and now what?
A equals B and B is all the goods, and I have A, then I have B.
We got two identical universes we're floating around. What happens now?
Okay, so now in the second universe, I add a pineapple. I still have all the goods. Right? Because I still have A.
May not be identical with the first now, right? Because it's got a pineapple.
No. If I added a pineapple to the universe, then it would be. What I'm saying is just our universe.
Made it into a universe not identical with the first because it's got a pineapple.
So different dimensions. So like they're different universes in the same multiverse kind of a thing. So all of it. So it's still all of the properties that are true of this universe, true of that universe, but it has a pineapple somewhere that does not in any way interact with our universe.
The pineapple is in the universe, but not of it.
It's in a different universe in the multiverse, so a different dimension.
Not interacting with us. The pineapple is acting with our duplicate universe out here, but not interacting with us.
No. It's not interacting with that universe either. So it can never interact. It's just in the same conceptual space.
Like Russell's teapot, circling the Earth or something. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Now,
but it's still. So we still have exactly our universe as it is, which means we still have exactly all the goods as they are, and the pineapple, the change, stop that, which means whatever I can now add stuff and change stuff and all this other stuff, that as long as it doesn't interfere with this universe, then it must still have all the goods, because this universe must have all the goods, or must be entailed. Like all the goods are entailed by this universe. So as long as I have this universe with all the properties, then I must have all the goods.
You've added something else. You're going to add things to this other universe. You're going to
that will not in any way affect this universe. That will not in any way affect like the copy.
Universe, but affects that universe.
No. So here's our universe. It's in a bucket. Now I copied all of our stuff into this new universe, and now I've partitioned this. This is in a box. I will never touch any of this. This is all going to be the same. And now in this box, which I have in my little new world, I'm going to make another world that's connected, that doesn't affect anything, a different dimension of the same universe. So they never interact, never change anything, different dimension, but our universe, our copy is still in this space. Now, whatever I do to this copy will never be able to diminish the goods in the first universe, because it still has all the same properties as our original. So because I have a copy of our original, all of the goods that are a part of the copy are still there. And if I start messing with stuff on the side that never interacts with this or changes it in any way, I still must have all the goods. Does that make sense?
So I'm not. I was trying to think of a more real life example. Would be
real life example.
Let me run this. Let me just run this by you. What if God? There are no rational creatures. He creates life, but no rational creatures. That's a world of no rational creatures. You still talk about maybe natural evil here. You could talk about the 6 extinctions. This is a problem, but up to us. But if there's just no rational, so there's a world with no rational creatures, and then you imagine duplicate that world, another world with no rational creatures, and now we're going to pop some rational creatures into the thing, and then that's going to do. So I think that would do something. I mean, that would be kind of a realistic case.
Right, that wouldn't be the analogy. So the analogy is, imagine I have a CD or a data disk, and on the data disk is Microsoft Windows. Now let's say I copy the data disk, and now it also has Microsoft Windows. And now on a different part of the data disk, I install Apple. Now on the data disk, I have Windows and Apple. So one data disk I have just Windows, one data disk I have Windows and Apple. Now, if the data disk on Windows can run an application and get a number, let's do math or whatever, 1 + 1 = 2. This one also has that. It also has the 1 + 1 = 2 Microsoft Windows on it. But I can also run a different program. So all of the outcomes of Microsoft Windows is on this data disk. All of the goods from Microsoft Windows is on this data disk. But there's also something else which doesn't interfere. It doesn't change Microsoft Windows in any way. The Apple is a different operating system. It doesn't affect any of the data where the Microsoft Windows is saved. So you have Microsoft Windows and Apple on this data disk.
Yeah.
But this data disk is still capable of doing everything this data disk can do, because it has the exact same programming. It's just on a different side, right?
Yeah. I mean,
so
what you're saying is God could create another tier of creatures on top of the one that He has created.
No. So I'm saying our entire Microsoft Windows is our entire universe, everything as it is right now.
Yeah. Well, so far. So and now we're imagining another set of beings.
No.
What are we imagining? What's the addition? I mean, when you got
the addition would just be a different universe. So a universe without murder, no rape, no death, whatever. Just pick a new universe, new rules, whatever you want. So
the problem there is, if you imagine us, what are you going to imagine? If you imagine us, say, always agents that always do what's right. This is part of the discussion. Why couldn't God make a world where all the rational agents always did what was right? And He didn't do that, so he's at fault.
Well, that's way later. So there are no rational beings in this Apple universe. So let's just say the only rational beings are in the copy. So we have our universe, which is Microsoft Windows, and we copy it to a new data disk, which is also Microsoft Windows. And then we create Apple, but Apple has nothing. There are 0 conscious beings in Apple. Nothing. It's just a blank universe of nothing. Or a pineapple, whatever. in this universe, we still have all of the goods. In this data disk that has both Microsoft Windows and Apple, it has all of the goods that was in Microsoft Windows because it has all the properties that was in Microsoft Windows, right? So Microsoft Windows is our universe as
and then you have something else in addition.
Right. And something else in addition doesn't stop any of the goods. I still got all the goods.
Right. And
Okay.
and then the idea is that this addition thing makes the whole, the greater whole of these better than the thing, the subpart.
No, I'm not making that argument. So all I'm saying is the only part of this argument.
What are you doing then? You got yeah, there's all the universe you got, and then you got this other thing that's what, another set of beings or not another set of beings?
Nothing. It's nothing right now. The only point of this argument is to show whatever goods are logically possible for God to ever attain in this world, I can get them without ever knowing what they are, if I just have an exact copy. And now, if I can add other stuff to the copy and then make it better in any way, you still have all the goods.
Wait a minute. You're not going to be able to extract the goods from the evils. You just can't take the goods out of this world. Let's put them all together in this box. I don't know if that was what you were doing. And then what the goods are going to be logically connected to evils in this world. If you're going to have the evil goods in another world, you're going to have the evils too.
Yes, that's why it's an exact copy. So Microsoft Windows.
So the evils are out there too with the goods.
Yep. So Microsoft Windows, our universe, exactly everything that it entails. I'm going to copy Microsoft Windows onto a new data disk, a new CD. And so it has all the goods, all the evils. It is the complete unedited edition of Microsoft Windows, our original universe. And then on the extra space on the data disk, I add more stuff. But guess what? All of the goods and all of the evils are still on the data disk.
Yeah.
Which means I can get whatever, I don't even know what they are. I don't know what any of the goods are. All I know is that they have to be on this data disk because they're all in this universe. So if I make an exact copy of this universe, I get every possible good ever, no matter what.
And every
even
evil,
if I don't know what they are.
Yeah.
Yes, and everything
possible, not every possible, everything that was realized in this universe.
Sure.
Not every possible, because that's the whole problem. What's realized in the universe is not what's possible for the universe.
Whatever goods God thinks are required for a universe to exist, I get those. That's all that matters.
Wait, it isn't that God thinks are required. If you're buying this Christian story, at least to defeat it, part of the goods that happen are not goods that God requires, but goods that, because he allows freedom, happen in the universe.
I don't care. I don't care. Anything God thinks is required, he put in this universe by definition.
The evils are not required. What? They just happen, and he lets them happen, but he doesn't require them.
He lets them happen for some reason, which is a requirement.
Yes, that's different. That's different from requiring.
That's the same. All of the oh my God, this doesn't
requiring something and letting something happen for some reason are not the same.
It makes literally no difference.
It makes a big difference in ethics.
No
big difference in what's required
to the argument. The argument is simply trying to prove that no matter what the goods are, whether I know them or not, I can also get them by just copying this universe. Exactly the same. Law of identity, transitive property, very simple. If I copy this universe, I get all of the goods, no matter what.
One with the duplicate for a minute now, for a while. But then I'm not sure then what happens with the additions. That's the question. You have to, somehow there's something else the guy can do. He's got our universe, and then the duplicate of it, and then he's going to add or could add something to it. And make it better. No, I don't know. That's what I can see. Makes it better. It has to make it better. It can't make it worse. Then that's going to help you out.
Sure.
So it makes it better.
Yes, he can add things to it, and we don't lose any of the goods.
Right. Yes, and that's the whole thing about could there be a better world? And that goes back to Leibniz and this is the best possible world, and the whole argument's there about whether could there be a best possible world. And
I don't care if there's a best. I just need a better. If there's one fact that's better.
But see, okay, but then the argument is, if there's always a better world, this is actually an argument. If there's always could be a better, then God should have created that world. But if there's a better world than that, he should have created that world. And if there's a better world than that, he should have created that world.
I don't. That doesn't matter. So all I need to do to show God is evil is that he didn't create one that's even slightly better. If there's a best world or not, it makes no difference.
But I think that's not quite clear. If there's never if God could always make something better than He's made, and it's always true for whatever He's made, He could make something better than He's made. It's not clear He's at fault for just choosing one of these overall good worlds, even though there's a better world He didn't choose.
Well, no, I'm saying for an overall good world has some requirement to it that it isn't like, for example, a doctor in the 1800s. If a doctor in the 1800s cuts your leg off because you got shot, that's rational because that's the best he can do to save your life.
Right, definitely.
If a doctor today cuts your leg off, you're going to sue him for malpractice because he could just give you an antibiotic.
Different circumstances.
So if God has a power to give you an antibiotic, but instead cuts your leg off, He is immoral.
Well, I guess you might want to say that, back in what we were doing 18th century here, that God should have stopped these surgeries and maybe
No. This isn't about God. This is just making a logical argument to determine if someone is gratuitously evil. So if someone causes excess suffering when they didn't need to, they are gratuitously evil and not perfectly good.
It didn't need to for some good.
Yes.
Didn't need to provide some good, and the idea that the evils in the world are justified by greater goods. Yep. You've got to somehow undercut that.
Right, which means I need to get all of those goods. I need some way to achieve all of those goods.
Well, yeah, but see, again, some of them can be in the afterlife. In fact,
that's fine. That's fine. I need to get all of the goods. I don't care what they are. I don't care where they are.
It goes on forever.
That's fine. All of the goods. I don't care. I don't care what the goods are. I need to get every single one of them.
Yeah.
So if I have an exact copy of this world, I have every single one of them.
Right.
And so if I have an exact copy of this world and then make a change, like add a universe without murder that you could optionally go to, I still have all of the goods. I have every single one of them as a possibility.
No, you don't in a way. I mean, you just do the murder for a minute now. So you don't have them because in the murder case, there is this possibility of repentance.
Yeah,
I take it what you wanted to do was to stop the murder. God should stop the murder, but if He stops the murder, he eliminates a certain good, the good of repentance.
No. So I'm saying again, there is an exact copy of everything in this universe. That's murder, rape, cancer, death, all of it. All of it exists. He hasn't stopped any of it. He stopped nothing. The exact copy of exactly this universe.
The problem of evil is to try to say God did something wrong in this universe. Not that there's some, He could have done better here. That's the whole point. If He can't do better here, now you're talking about another world. You want to convict God on the basis of what He did here, not on the basis of that there was this other world that He could have created, which would have been better. No, he could have done something in this world. He could have interfered in this world and made things better, and He didn't. That's why He's mad.
What's the difference there? So God redesigning the world instead of
we don't need a world with the evils in it. We don't need that.
Right. Whether or not He created the world differently or changed it while it was existed doesn't make a difference to the argument. I don't see why that's relevant.
Well, because what happens is the world as created and allowed to exist is got more evils, way more evils in it than any good God would allow. That's the problem. That's where you get the argument against the existence of God. Any all good God would never have permitted this world.
Well, no, that I would disagree with. I would say that a perfectly good God, if it existed, would give you the option to design your own world however you want. And if you design a world exactly like this, you have every choice to be here, and it would be immoral for Him to stop you from being here.
You can't have all these little individuals designing the worlds because
why not?
The decision of why? Because the choices of different individuals interfere with each other.
No, they don't.
If you want something, if you say, I want this world because it'll give me its effect, and somebody else says, I want this world because it'll give me the opposite effect, and now you can't give them both the effect and the opposite of the effect.
Yes, you can. It's really simple. You say everybody gets their own universe. They can design it however they want, and no one can force anybody else.
Well, but so now it's it's all, you get a tailored universe. And of course, in your universe, there's a whole bunch of exploited people in it if you're a bad person.
No conscious being can ever be forced to enter another conscious being's universe without their consent. Every conscious being gets their own universe designed however they want.
But if he wants other beings in it with free choice,
they can choose to enter, or they can choose to not.
Take the risks, and take the risks of them doing bad to him or her.
Well, if they so like I could design a universe where it's impossible to disobey me, and people can choose to enter, they just won't be able to disobey me. So I can say, in my universe, the way I'm going to design it is everyone in here is my personal slave, and that's fine. There's nothing immoral about that. But as long as I don't force other people to enter my universe, if they can, as long as they are fully consciously aware of what the universe is like,
choosing to be slaves to Tom Jump, and if they're all choose rational choice. How does rational choice come in here? They must have a very low self-esteem or something. I don't know what's going on here.
Yeah, maybe they just want to try it out for a week. Who knows?
They only get. Well, I thought you wanted them for your lifetime.
That could be a condition too. I can say that's condition. You are permanently my slave forever.
Jeez.
And they could just be like, nope, we're not going to enter that universe, and that's fine. There's no immorality there.
I don't. We are not. This idea that would be a good world for you is probably shit. You chose then a bad world. I mean, you choose a world.
I can change it. I can modify my universe at any time I want and make it.
But you're not always doing good for you, even by doing that. You're not even doing good for you by doing that.
The point here was: is it possible for people to create their own universes and not interfere? That was the goodness is a different argument here. The only thing I'm showing is that it's possible to have each individual have their own universe and not have it interfere with other universes. That's perfectly fine.
An argument why, if God doesn't do this as he does.
No, this isn't an argument about God. This is just showing: is it logically possible to have a universe where everyone has their own universe, can design it? Yes, that's logically possible. Like, this is not about God here,
and it's not about goodness.
No,
it's not about God and not about goodness. It's just about crazy choices that people could make.
No. You just said it's logically impossible to have universes where everyone can decide their own universe without it interfering with other people, and that's just wrong.
I didn't say it was logically impossible. I said it was kind of crazy that I'm not sure what kind of being you imagine who wants to be in a world where nobody else has choices except that one person.
Well, I didn't say that. That was just one. So
we're all gonna. Well, the choices. I mean, they only have bad choices. It seems to me.
What? So every conscious being,
all being your slaves.
No. Every conscious being gets their own universe. Every single one, and every single one gets to decide the rules of their universe. And no conscious being can be forced or created in someone else's universe. Every single conscious being gets their own universe. That means nobody potentially would ever come into my universe willingly. They never do it. So there'd just be
somebody else in it. But what's in it besides you?
What? Artificial intelligences and video games.
Oh my gosh. Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. All right. All these I'm not sure how these beings, they're nothing like us because they we develop socially and by interaction with people. I mean, we're going to interaction with machines now. Look, machines could be persons. I'm not going. There's no problem.
Yeah, if they're conscious, they would get their own universe too. Anything that's conscious.
But I'm not sure. I'm not sure what these creatures are like. They're not us.
I don't care what they're like.
Well, but then what is it? These beings that could choose their universe. Beings that could choose that, whatever that means. Beings that could choose their universe. And is this something God, when you bring God in it all, I was going to say something God should have done and didn't do. I don't know what to do with this.
So the original argument is just in order to counter the problem of evil and to present a logical problem of evil, all you have to do is show that there is an alternative universe which can attain all of the goods with one less bad. That's all you got to do.
You're not going to, if you've got universes where the person chooses everything that's in that universe, it's not, if we're to say, look, and we're going to talk about Tom, you could have had this universe and you got this one. You're in this universe where you're subject to other people's choices and you don't like it too much. But you could have been in a universe where you, Tom, decide everything.
Yep.
Everything is by your choice.
Yep.
I take it that's not Tom. Over there is not Tom. You were created or emerged in a universe where people were choosing around you, and you are a product of those people's choices. You can't just pluck you out and say, well, imagine I didn't come this way. I came all formed. I don't know how formed. And then I began making choices about who could be in my universe with me, or if anything could be in my universe with me. That's a very, I don't know sure where we want to go with all this. Yeah.
I don't like, yeah, God could literally pop me into existence with exactly every thought I have right now, and I could just choose my own universe. That's not a problem. That has nothing to do with my argument.
Past. God can't change the past.
God can't. That's an
Change
interesting God. Sure. Okay.
Okay. So he can't kind of pluck you out and give you a different past.
That's fine. He could still pluck me out right now in the present and give me a different universe. Like I don't.
Well, now, but that's now we got Tom formed by this universe with the social environment you had in this universe, and now you're thinking, well, I'll be better off if I can now choose my future universe or future history, and God doesn't do this for me, so He's not good.
Sure, that works too. That's not the argument, but that's a good argument too.
I'm not. I mean, one of the arguments right there, just try that, is that it's arguable that's not good for you, and the fact that God doesn't. Tom, I really don't want you plucking out in some universe and where you're making all the choices. I think that really is not good for you.
Well, that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter because
interact with people like me and others, and that helps you to be the good person you can be.
Remember, in order for God's goods to be achieved, they just have to be possible. Like you said, not all goods are achieved because we have the choice to do good and sometimes we do evil. And so the fact that I choose to do evil and go to my own universe is perfectly fine as long as the goods that God thinks are required in the universe are still attainable. So as long as we still have the necessary conditions of these goods in the universe, then I've achieved the goal. I've solved the logical problem of evil because I have all the goods. If I choose not to do them, that's fine. Like we can always choose not to do the goods. That's fine. But as long as I have all the goods in my universe and choose not to do them, perfectly fine.
That way, they're not like all separate little bubbles or grains of sand we could kind of leap together. It turns out that some of the goods are conditional on other goods and conditional on other evils. So if you don't have those goods or evils, you don't have the others. So there's kind of a networking of things going on here. It's not just about a certain amount of sand shoved into the world, and then those are the goods, and then you could shove more in. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm on your side here. I want a logical argument against the existence of God, and we both agree that somehow we should be talking about all the goods that God could provide to us. But then what's happening then is, well. And then here's what I thought we should want to do is to show, these are all the goods that God could provide to us, and somehow in this world He's not doing that, and there are moral principles. I mean,
wait, say that again. Say that again. You said here are all the goods
He's not providing us with goods that He could provide to us. They're there. I mean, they're possible goods, but that doesn't mean. Well, no. Here, wait. Run this around. I'm sorry. We're talking about goods that God could provide to us. That the question is that would be justify the evil in the world. It's all about justifying evil,
right?
From the problem of evil question. The idea is there's goods that God is providing, could only provide to us. If there's these evils, what we want to try to show is that those goods are not required by the evils. Let me just take the one big one. I want to just try a big one here, but the big one I've been using a little bit. The friendship with God. Wow, this is the one that theists use big time because they say, look, that good is so great, it just swamps every evil you possibly could have in this world in your life. And when you're going to get that, you're not going, well, I don't care about all this thing I suffered in this life. It's just, this is so great. Here's the problem with that. I don't know why. I've done this many times with theists, and I don't know why. I thought maybe they would object because there's something wrong with it, but they never do. I say, look, this idea of friendship, he can't give us friendship because it gives us opportunity to be friends, because friendship has to be something if he freely gives and also something we freely accept. And that's the whole idea of friendship. Okay. So I say, look, God's giving us the opportunity to be friends with him is not logically conditioned on his permission of horrendous evil. He could prevent all the horrendous evil in the world and still give. I mean, if it was conditional on his permission of horrendous evil, then God would be constrained. He would have to permit horrendous evil in order to offer his friendship. You know, you and I, we're not constrained by we have to do evil in order to be friends. You know, that's crazy. Well, that's not our life. I mean, sometimes, I mean, maybe there's situations where I don't really think that would be friendship. I mean, again, the whole thing, if it's constrained by permission of evil and you have to permit evil to be friends, this is all kind of breaks the whole friendship idea. So this whole great good that the theists are using to justify God's permission of evil in this world doesn't depend on there being this evil, the horrendous evil in the world.
I agree.
That's a great starter. It's not the full thing, but it's sort of and then they have to say, but wait a minute, there are some other goods, not friendship with God, that are logically connected to the evils, and God couldn't give you those goods without the evils. Yeah. Now there's more. I could go more on it, but you could see the thing is moving. So wait a minute, you got friendship with God. What else do you want? You want these other goods? You don't need these other goods. You got friendship with God. So you can see how the argument's starting to move here. But
right. And so then they would say there's some unknown good. There's some unknown good that he's giving you that you don't know about. And how would you address that?
Yeah, but the issue is, here's the crucial part of my argument will be, because there's always these goods that are logically connected up to evils. The goods that are not logically connected, for example, I mean, I got these three moral evil requirement principles. One is just really all three. Well, two are very obviously right. The third, I think, is right when by analogy with the other two. But look at this one. If God or if anyone could provide a great good without permitting horrendous evil, easily provide a great good, then he should do it that way. He shouldn't permit the horrendous evil to get the good. It's why would you permit horrendous evil to get a good that you could get without the horrendous evil? That's a moral requirement. Don't permit horrendous evil to get a great good when you could get the great good without the horrendous. And that's
yes, we 100% agree. That's the exact same with the doctor analogy. When you cut leg off and you don't need to, exactly the same. So I 100% agree to that part. But the problem,
but see, the great good there, the cutting, God does not need to allow. I mean, this is when we have health problems. You want a general. I'm not sure whether you just want to do about the cutting the leg.
The point of that was that when God can do a good, like saving your leg, but chooses not to and cuts your leg off by providing horrendous evil, that's bad. Just like what you said, if God has the opportunity to provide a good without causing horrendous evil, but doesn't, that's bad.
Well, now what you would require there, though, is you need a miraculous action to fix the leg.
The leg
that's why he doesn't.
The leg isn't about God. The leg is not. The leg is just an analogy.
Well, you just took the leg case. I'm trying to deal with that evil of your leg being cut off, when it's maybe gangrene, is there. You know, God could prevent that happening by miraculously restoring your leg.
The point. This is an analogy to bring up your exact point about if God can provide a good without also causing horrendous evil, there is a contradiction with God providing both. It's
Yeah,
just an
but see,
analogy to express that. That's it.
here, your example is an example of that, because what happens there, this is where the thing gets complicated, is allowing medical practice to go on a certain way allows certain goods to happen that
That's fine.
if you had God intervening, those goods wouldn't be there.
That's fine. The point of the analogy is not to express that this is exactly what that is. It's just an analogy. So it doesn't, but the next question in the argument is the Christian, Alvin Plantinga, in his paper says that there may be some unknown greater good that
Yeah.
is required to allow all of this horrendous evil.
Yeah,
So
that's
the problem
the
is,
argument, and you got to try to say why that's not possible. And I
yes.
don't know if you just go by, you're going to build it up evil by evil. I'm not sure what you're planning here. But
so my response to that is says all of the possible goods, I know where they are. I don't know what they are. All of the unknown goods, I can have all of those if I have an exact copy of this universe. Then I have all of the unknown goods. So I can address every single one of the unknown goods. How do you address it?
Well, look, the problem is when you say you can have all the goods, as the universe, as human history develops, I'm not sure when some goods are no longer possible, and some evils.
It doesn't matter to the argument.
Well, I mean, I don't know what are you duplicating this whole history?
Yes, everything, literally every single proposition about this universe, every single thing
that continually changes. So
it makes no difference. I don't care. Past, present, future, whatever criteria you want. I do not care. I'm copying literally everything.
It's an ongoing universe. So now we now have a duplicate ongoing with like the one we have, and now what? I think we're now in both cases stuck with some goods in those universes, the duplicate and the real world, that only logically possible to God if the evil is permitted in that world. There are that's there in each world, because our world's like that. That's why I like to stay with our world and not put a duplicate out there.
So the difficulty in trying to address Plantinga's argument is we have to be able to solve the problem of unknown goods. How do we solve the problem of unknown goods? Now, if we know that all of the unknown goods are entailed in this universe in some abstract way, I don't care how, then if I have a copy of this universe, I have all of the possible goods, including all of the unknown ones. Now, if I have all of the unknown goods and then show I can have all of those and one extra good, make it consensual. You can choose to be in this universe or you can choose to go to a different one. Poof, you have an extra good. Problem solved. I have now solved all of the unknown goods in Plantinga's argument. He can no longer use the argument that there's an unknown good because whatever that is, it's in this universe and I already have that as an option. So I've achieved the solution of solving the unknown good problem. How does your model solve the unknown?
You achieve the solution of, you now gave the person the choice, but see, these are two universes that and then this is where you went to, each person gets their own universes. So you see, if we knew, let's put us both up into the pre-existent, our time has not come. We're back we're back in about the time we were born at different times, and now we're looking at this universe as it has happened so far, and we're deciding whether to join it or not. And option, look, you look at your situation, look where you came from, where you would be born to, and you say, I don't want that. I don't even choose. I don't want that one.
That's
and
fine.
Then what happens? Now you're still floating in the possible world.
That's fine.
And so you only get people in here who've looked at the universe as it. See, I think this is a really tricky thing, because either you come into existence, you don't. I mean, if you're in this non-thing where you're not there, I don't know.
Yeah, you still exist. Yes, you exist before going into the universe.
Maybe you should stay up there. Why would I come down to this shitty world? I mean,
that's fine.
I mean, why would you come into this world what's that pre-existing world that you're in? It might be fantastic. You're stupid to come down in this world.
Sure.
And so you made the stupid decision to come. We both made stupid decisions, and we came down in this world. And now what we say is what? the evil in this world is justified because we chose to come into it? I don't see that.
Sort of, but sort of. But
a lot of evils on other people and not me.
I would say if
justify it.
I would say yes, if we voluntarily chose to experience this evil, it would be justified.
But
that's
I chose to come into this world, and this world has a lot of evil in it.
yes. If you voluntarily consent to experience that, it's fine. Yeah, it's not immoral.
Yeah,
But,
I mean, I would think if I had this choice, the question is what the pre-existent world was like. I
yes.
think the real problem is this world is there's so much moral evil in it. I think no good person would choose to come into it if they had a better deal. They'd stay up there.
I would agree, but that doesn't just.
But I don't think if they chose to come into it, I don't think that justifies. Now, when you want to say maybe the evil in their life, but not all the other evil in the world.
If every conscious being chose and knowingly chose to be in this world, knowing they were going to experience whatever suffering they're going to experience, then it's all perfectly fine. So,
well, but you have us all choosing at different times and different places.
That's fine.
And they chose to come in, and they all made this horrible moral choice to come into this world.
But that wouldn't be immoral.
And really, what God should have done is prevent them even to make the choice. It was a bad deal. They should have stayed up there with the heavenly and with the angels or whatever. It's a much better deal up there. And so probably on this view, God should prevent people from making any such choice. The world is so evil, and just stay up with the angels. It's a much better world up there.
Well, I'd see that as immoral. So I'd say God forcing people to not choose would be immoral, but that's irrelevant to the argument.
Oh, wait.
Irrelevant.
This is back to your don't force people against their will thing. But look,
yes, I think consent
we do that all the time. We stop robbers, we stop assaulters from doing what they want to do. That's perfectly good. And here, if you were going to make this horrendous choice of coming into this world when you can live in this wonderful angelic world and with no evil in it, you are making a worst choice of your life. God's going to stop. No, can't do that, Tom. That's a bad deal for you. I'm going to do what's good for you, Tom. Keep you up in this world.
That's a separate argument. So going back to the logical problem of evil, the problem here is how do you solve the problem Plantinga has presented that there may be unknown goods? That's what we need to solve. The
basic Plantinga argument wasn't so much about the possible. It comes later when he talks about justifying all the evil in the world. But to argue against Mackey was unbelievable. He said God is incompatible with any evil. This was a total mistake. He should have distinguished trivial evils and horrendous evils. He didn't. So then what Plantinga does, this is the one that everybody kind of sees. He says, look, God could, if he makes us free, and he has to go against for libertarian freedom over compatibilist freedom, because there's a problem. Compatibilist freedom puts God more in charge. With the libertarian freedom, if he makes us free, it may be that as long as he's allowing us to be free, we will choose to do at some point in our lives some evil thing. That's logically possible. And therefore, God, and that would be evil. And God in some evil then, if there's a choice of creating a being who's free is a good thing, if God does this good thing, some evil comes into the world. And actually, if it's just, if it's a trivial evil, it's a good thing that God created the person and suppose only trivial evil came into the world, because a lot of greater good would presumably then come, and that would overcome the trivial evil. And that would be a good story. But all Plantinga was worrying about was, could God sort of, and this is it's called free will defense. Freedom here, the freedom of be able to free justifies now some evil in the world.
Yes.
Okay.
And then Plantinga goes further and says there is no gratuitous evil. There's no evil that doesn't have some good.
The gratuitous notion comes a little bit later. I mean, he does want to generalize this to that God freedom could justify all the evil in the world. The freedom of agents could justify all the evil, and that's where he gets in trouble. it's the case that freedom can justify some evil,
Right.
but it can't justify particularly horrendous evil.
Right.
And that's where and so now Plantinga sort of, that was the basic move. He just thought that he made the argument for some freedom, for some evil, and he thought he could just say, well, and that justifies. See, here's the way the Christian has to go on this, or the theist has to go. It can't be freedom is the full sole justification for this.
Right.
Because we just shown that freedom for horrendous evil may not be a justification. But so that's why I was giving you made this free choice of.
Yes, I'm familiar. I'm very familiar. The question is in order for there to be a logical problem of evil, that means you have to be able to prove that there can't be some unknown good that could justify all the gratuitous suffering.
Not prove. See you got the person doing it. The skeptical theist. The theist here is just saying it's possible that there's some greater good. That's all they need. They don't have to prove there is.
The atheist has to prove that there is no possible.
Yeah, that's the hard
good.
part. That's why after Mackey, and particularly without the resources of moral and political philosophy, most of the atheists are going for an evidential argument. In fact, I find the strongest critics of my argument are atheists, because they don't want there to be this logical, because especially if they've been working their whole careers. Well, I'm building an evidential argument. God is unlikely, but he's logically possible. And now someone said, well, wait a minute, there's a logical impossibility argument here. They don't want to hear that story in a way.
Right.
I mean, they will, I've had nice discussions with them, but they're some of my strongest critics, that they don't want to. They claim you can't get a logical argument against the existence of God, and so I'm having an interesting time of it. I never thought
so. Yeah. Two things there. One is, my question is how do you, in your argument, prove that there isn't an unknown good to justify gratuitous evils? And the second is, I think I can do that.
I laid out a little bit of the argument, but not all of it. So I said we have this classification of all the goods God could possibly provide to us. And then I said, well, and I initially I was thinking the thing that was giving me thrust here was what's called the Pauline principle. Never do evil, the good may come of it. I thought, I was wondering why theists don't talk about this when they're trying to give this justification for God. It was kind of interesting. Most theists, most people working for religion, they're traditionalists. They actually don't like utilitarianism. They like Kantian views or Aristotelian views. They don't like you. But then there was this interesting thing about when they came to the problem of evil. They became utilitarians. There was this great good out there that compensated for the permission of evil. And I thought, this is kind of strange. And I've always had these deontological sympathies. And the Pauline principle, never do evil, the good may come of it, sort of captures a bit of those. There's Kantian versions of this. But of course you could say, oh, wait a minute, the Pauline principle has exceptions. Trivial evils, it could be permitted for greater goods. And so you're not quite sure, well, what is the principle that constrains God here? And here's what I try to do. I try to show that these constraints operate under both consequentialism, they're crucial, and non-consequentialism. So it doesn't matter what your moral theory is, because I want to show that these moral constraints on God, where he's violating endlessly, are justified both under consequentialist reading and under non-consequentialist reading. Now, if you just took that one principle I gave, now it's one of three, the one principle that don't permit horrendous evil to achieve a good when you could get the good without the horrendous evil. Both deontologists and consequentialists say that's fine. That's a good principle. Even the consequentialists. So there's no disagreement. So the whole issue is I'm operating at the point of convergence between the consequentialists and the non-consequentialists. Just that one example was another place of the convergence. Now, there are two other principles here. And so any goods that of that category, that kind, that aren't here, that was what that kind was. that's a good that does not logically depend on the permission of evil. See, when I said you could get this good without permitting the evil, that meant that there was no logical connection between the good and the evil, and so you could permit it. You could get it without the evil, and so you should get it without permitting the evil. See, that's the move. Now go to another kind of case. The case is, suppose you've got two, and I'm really focusing on consequences here because I want the inner act to be God doesn't interfere with this. It's the only external consequences I want God to come in here. This is where he really messes up. I want you have to give the theist and this idea that there's freedom here. You've got to have what you want is constrained freedom, not total freedom. Sometimes the theist looks like they're looking for total freedom here, but that's crazy because you can't have total freedom. If you have total freedom, I don't. If you're free to do everything you want to do, at least it's certainly possible. But they'll conflict with some of the things I want to do. So we can't give everybody total freedom. So the idea is, well, constrained freedom is what. Again, I'm moving away here a little bit, but let me just put this into place. The model here for me, where again comes as a political philosopher, is the idea of an ideal, just, and powerful state. That's what God should be like. The ideal, just, and powerful state. Ask what that state would be like. What would it do? What would it prevent? And what would it not prevent? And that's what God should be doing in this world. He's not doing it. Okay, but now I dealt with one kind of good. Let me deal with another kind of good. So suppose there are two evil consequences. Like you could either, they take our cases, human cases. You could either save somebody from being assaulted, 5 people from being assaulted by.
Question. Why do you think that there couldn't be an unknown kind of good, like a 5th kind of good? Couldn't that be a possibility?
They all goods have to be either goods that you have a right to, which you don't have a right to, either goods that are logically connected to God's permission of evil or not logically connected. That divides all goods into those 4 categories. Okay?
Okay,
I'm talking about when I got to the good about here's a good that is not logically dependent on God's permission of evil, and then for that good, why permit evil to get the good? No reason. So then they shouldn't do that.
So what about the first one? The goods that are connected to the problem of evil.
Well, goods that these are all goods that God could possibly provide to us, and they fall into these 4 categories.
Right.
Now let me. I mean, if another category of them, whereas you've got 2 sort of evils. We're stuck sometimes. We could either prevent a small group of people from being assaulted by a military force, or we could prevent a larger group of people from being assaulted by a military force. We can't do both because of separation. We have to choose, and that's our problem. We have to choose. Now, on the assumption that there's no other good that justifies our preventing or not preventing these evils, a being should prevent both of them. We can't because of limitations. God could. This is what God should always, in this kind of case, where no justificatory good is at stake, other than the prevention of evil. He should prevent both in this case. 2 assaults on innocent people, one more good, more people, more lesser good. He should prevent both assaults. And of course, that's another kind of situation. Now, the real tough one is the case where the goods, and I've been pushing this on you, where the goods are logically connected to the permission of evil. And in that case, and this is where my argument about that God can provide us with this friendship with God, or God give us his opportunity for friendship without permission of horrendous evil. And he could also, there's another thing here, God could provide us all with the resources for a decent life without the permission of horrendous evil. The same kind of argument goes here, why that's possible. So we could have friendship with God. We could have a decent life. And we could also have all the goods that are not logically connected to evils. God could give us all those. And now here's the situation. There's still some goods here. These are goods that are logically connected, goods for us, to God's permission of evil. Now, one would be it was the good of forgiveness, the good of being a caretaker for someone who's been assaulted, the good of forgiving your assaulter, and then even the good of the perpetrator of
repentance.
Repentance. Yeah, now, those are good. Those are all logically connected to the permission of evil. Now, here's my point. I think that now they could talk about these would be beneficiaries of God's permission of evil. The assaulter, the victim, the person that could be a caretaker. These are all beneficiaries of God's permission of evil. My claim is they knowing, or if we knowing for them, that they could have friendship with God without God's permission of evil. They could have a decent life without God's permission of evil. They would be required, actually, to morally prefer God not permit the evil in order to provide them with those goods. The caretaker will just do fine without having to be a caretaker. They've got friendship with God. There's lots of other ways they could be caretaker for not horrendous evils. And now the one case you might want to think about the perpetrator. Why would he or she? Well, here's what I think about the perpetrator is this: if the perpetrator ever repents their deed, they would know. They would regret for all eternity that they inflicted some horrendous evil on someone, and they would prefer that someone, in God, with last resort here, had prevented them from doing the horrendous assault on the person. That would be their preference if they ever were turned to be a moral person. So you've got the perpetrator, you can talk about the bystander, the victim. Also, their victim, this horrendous evil. You don't erase these from. They're in your memory. They're there.
Well, wouldn't the Christian argue something like, in order to have friendship with God, God needs to give you free will, and if you have free will, then that requires horrendous evil?
No, you can't. No, the free will. Look, he has to give us free will, yes, but there's a question about how much freedom does he have to give us? Does he, in order to allow us to have we have to do something morally good here. And we have to do something morally good. God's not going to be friends with a child molester. I mean, you got to live up to some kind of moral standard, or at least try to be, before God's going to even offer you friendship. That makes sense. There's constraints on how much God could offer friendship to you. So you have to be doing something that it's admirable, that you're trying, you're being moral, you're doing. That's the only way you're going to get the opportunity to be friends with God. But you don't need to have to do or suffer horrendous evil in order to become virtuous. Look, you could have significant evils happening to you or others, and you're dealing with them, and trivial ones, and other things that don't involve evil, and become virtuous in all these ways. And so then be a good candidate for God's offering friendship with you. So none of that's necessary.
I do
sketch of my argument, not all of it, but that sketch of it.
Well, you did mention that you wanted to cap it at an hour and a half, and we've been going for an hour and a half.
Are we there?
Yeah.
Oh my God! My God! You see, you don't know anything about me, I guess. In this sense, I talked to you how I began as when I turned to be a political philosopher. I didn't tell you the part that I was in a religious order from age 14 to 26, Christian Brothers Order, and I was a teaching order, and I kind of realized I wasn't that good at high school teaching. They were all high school teaching, so I left. I'm still Catholic. This is Catholic, so a Catholic, and then I go on to University of Pittsburgh, and I sort of I'd like to do something on the problem of evil, but nobody's teaching philosophy of religion in Pittsburgh. So I finally talked somebody into, let me do a reading course on my own and give me credit for it. So I did. And what happened then was I became agnostic. I look at the problem of evil. At least I was going to be agnostic. But then I come to Notre Dame. Before when I got the offer to Notre Dame, I could have gone to McGill. I said, is this going to be a problem? And he said, well, as long as you don't preach it from the rooftops. So, okay. So I'm in Notre Dame, and look what I could do. In Thomism, there is a belief that faith and reason don't conflict. So I was going to be the expert on reason. And I was going to look at various topics, homosexuality, contraception, everything, and say, here's what reason requires for these. And then you better find a way to interpret faith that is consistent with that. That's not my job. I'm just this expert on reason. And so that worked for a long, long time until I got to this point. I didn't know what I was going to do in political philosophy anymore, And then I had this idea of bringing moral and political philosophy to bear on the problem of evil. And that's the philosophy of religion. It's a difficult world now, but I'm just bringing my tools of moral and political philosophy to bear on it, and I have to see where it leads. And I'm really, this is nothing else. So I've had, a couple things happening here. I mean, one, I'm doing a debate book with Richard Swinburne. We're just about finished up on that, but it's going to take a little bit more time because we're going back and forth on the negotiate what should be in it. And then I did a special issue for the journal Religions on the topic of my book, Is a Good God Logically Possible? I got 16 contributors. I replied to all of them. That was published, when was it published? It's last year. Right now, I'm doing another special issue. They liked what happened with the first. I responded to all those 16 in that thing. And so I said, well, you want to do another? I said, yes. And I want to do it close to the topic of the first. So I said, do we now have a logical argument from evil? So they kind of brought it back to, it's the same question again. And now I've got over 40 contributors. Now they're coming in. They'll come piling in. I've got about 10 or 15 out now in. And then they will pile in at the end of this month. And then the question will be, and I'll respond to them all. Now, I thought I had a response to the first 16, but I should tell you this. I did a debate Zoom debate at Princeton. Was it last spring or the spring before? I can't remember. And it was a debate on the problem of evil. And then Andrew Chignell, at Princeton, he had invited me. I thought I answered my debate partner, but he raised this objection to me, and I thought I answered it. And then we had a Zoom meeting, he and I later, and he raised it again, and with more development. And I thought I answered it too. And then I thought, and then I kept thinking about it. I'm not so sure. And then I thought, it works. It works against my argument. And that bothered me. I think, and then I figured out how I could respond to it. It's a really complicated, what happens is, in the problem of evil, Tully won't do this, but usually you give the theist an afterlife. You give them all good, all powerful God and afterlife. If they don't have the afterlife, the whole thing gets even worse for you to know. And so, but what Chignell had done was he was thinking of the theist having more resources. Imagine you have incarnation, redemption, and glorification. Then here's the move. So then you've got people suffering horrendous evil in this world. But Christ suffered horrendous evil. So in the next world, they will have camaraderie with Christ. Fantastic good that they can only have if they had suffered horrendous evil in this life. That was his problem. And I hadn't thought about that because I hadn't introduced all these assumptions into the argument with the theist. I have an answer to it. I'm going to go on to it. I won't do that. But I'm open. I say somewhere, my argument, my commitment to atheism is strong as this argument. punch a hole in it, I'm no longer an atheist. And so I'm waiting to see whether some of those 40, 10 are coming. I haven't seen anything yet, but there's still more. And maybe one of them, and maybe you will find something. Maybe you will have a logical argument, but you don't want mine. So maybe you'll find something to say. Maybe you have. I have to think about what you said. That's why I asked for a recording of this. I'm going to think about it. Maybe I made a mistake somewhere along the line. If I made a mistake, Tom, I see it. I'll come back to you and say, you were right about that, Tom. I now see what you were driving at. Why was I so thick-headed about that? I didn't see that. If I see it, I'll tell you.
Cool. Appreciate it. We have been going for a little over an hour and a half. Do you want to give any links and references where people can find more about your work?
I think, well, I guess the thing to look at that book, Is Good God Logically Possible? I got it out with Paul Gray because they gave me a paper edition. It's relatively cheap. And then you can go to that religion special issue with 16 critics of the view and my responses. That's open access. When this 40-some comes in, that'll be all open access. That'll give theists and atheists plenty to do if they want to know what I'm up to.
Cool. Awesome. Thanks again for coming on. It was a great conversation, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
And you too.